Uh-oh.
In her last two fights. Good way hitting him from that way down.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Here at Ring IQ, we like to keep our eyes peeled, keep a lookout for what unbeaten up-and-comers, what talented youngsters may grace the sport with their abilities and their talent. Our search, fresh new faces, takes us to Costa Rica, nestled in between Nicaragua and Panama. A young unbeaten up-and-comer that goes by the name Juliana Rodriguez-Acevedo seems to be doing very well for herself. Maybe on the cusp of world honors, anywhere inside of 2 to 3 fights. Juliana Rodriguez-Acevedo, born in San Jose, Costa Rica, residing there.
The story.
Juliana is supposed to be facing Teresa Almengor July 6th in Costa Rica for what is a WBA gold title, a lesser version of Sharman Johnson's full title at 118 pounds. There are currently 3 champions reigning at 118 pounds. Dina Thorsland, Unified Ring Magazine champion, who was in action this past weekend, successfully defending her WBO, WBC, and Ring Magazine titles. Japan's own Miyo Yoshida, who's currently in possession of the IBF title, and to my knowledge, doesn't have a fight scheduled. And Sharman Johnson, who I just mentioned, became WBA champion in her last fight when she beat then unbeaten Nina Hughes. They're supposed to be running it back. They're supposed to be having a rematch, and it would seem that young Juliana Acevedo is positioning herself for a fight with the winner, sporting a professional record of 8 wins with no losses, no draws, 5 knockouts from Costa Rica. Really good female fighters come from Costa Rica. Multi-weight champion Hannah Gabriels, multi-weight champion Yo Costa Valle, and her younger sister, Naomi Valle. Juliana Acevedo is just the latest addition to the pantheon of Valkyries that hail from the region, having debuted as a professional in June of 2021. She's fought 8 times since then, was last in action in July of last year. She fought 2 times last year and 4 times the year before that. Currently ranked at number 5 in the WBA's latest set of rank standings when those ranks are updated. And after this contest, I have no doubts that Juliana will have gained considerable ground. 26 years old. She's not with a major promotional outfit. She's not with a Matchroom or a Queensbury or a Golden Boy or a Top Rank. That could change. For now, the goal's got to be getting in position to fight for world honors, getting in position to fight for a world title. And it would seem that she's getting in position to fight for the WBA title. This fight that she's about to have is supposed to be for the WBA gold title. A segue to fight for the full one. Nicknamed China for what appear to be Oriental features, Asian features for what is a Central American fighter, campaigning at 118 pounds. For a 118-pounder, she's got very generous physical dimensions. She's a full-bodied fighter with a strong core, big quads,
Big legs,
and a big punch. Juliana Acevedo is best described as a mid-range to inside fighter.
aggressive,
Athletic, bordering somewhere in between a boxer-puncher and a pressure fighter. She has the range of motion, movement, and instincts of the boxer-puncher, but the ferocity, the temperance, and the volume of the pressure fighter.
and the sweet spot.
This doesn't appear to be a fighter that wants to hang back and stay behind their jab. They want to step into it, stay close to their opponent, to let combinations go, let punches flow. Juliana Acevedo's variety of punches, punches downstairs, punches upstairs.
I like it.
She's an orthodox fighter, leading with her left in order to set up her right, as if the women's bantamweight division weren't already a deep enough division. It's actually one of the deeper weight classes in all of women's boxing. Juliana Acevedo is really something. A welcome addition to the division. When I think about fighters like Canada's own Bree Howling or Canada's own Amanda Gaye, America's own Rihanna Rios, just to name a few, there are a lot of really talented fighters coming through at 118 pounds. Juliana Acevedo is one among them. An action fighter. I think my only hang-up with Juliana is she could stand to protect herself a little better when closing the distance, but you have to remember that this is an 8-0 fighter. This is a fighter that's still developing, so those defensive flaws, she has enough time to patch them up. So far, so good. I like her movement, I like her jab, I like the snap on the jab, I like the variety of punches she gets off. She's got good instincts. And as stated, she's supposed to be fighting for a lesser version of a WBA title a little over a month from now, in July. Wait, I thought the WBA was instructed to phase out all of those secondary trinket titles. They were by the ABC Commission 2 years ago, but 2 years later, it appears they've gotten that monkey off their back and they're back to mass-producing, manufacturing secondary titles. Juliana is set to fight for one, and I like her chances, what could serve as a segue for her to challenge the winner of Johnson versus Hughes, the rematch. Somebody you want to watch out for. Juliana Acevedo's got some tools. She looks the goods, looks the part. She may soon become somebody's problem if she keeps looking the way she's been looking. Keep your eyes peeled for this one. Moving on. Elsewhere in the world of boxing. Over on the business side of things, the business side of boxing with Alfie Sharman of DAZN, who's saying 7-figure numbers. DAZN executive opens up on the success of big fights for the platform. The inner workings of DAZN remain a mystery to some because it's not a conventional situation like conventional cable and satellite. Those days have long since passed. Those days are over. So anybody who's getting inside tips from somebody on the inside with the cable and satellite companies, they ain't got a whole lot to say right now. Need to make some new friends. Joshua versus Ngannou, Haney versus Garcia, Canelo versus Munguia, Fury versus Usyk, Taylor versus Catterall 2, and now the Queensbury versus Matchroom 5-for-5 this weekend. There doesn't seem to be a major event that the broadcaster isn't involved with, and this has been very successful for the company financially, according to one of their representatives. Alfie Sharman, who replaced Joe Markowski earlier this year. I remember when DAZN debuted in America, how many content creators who fancied themselves financial experts forecasted DAZN's fall, DAZN's bankruptcy, saying it wouldn't last. Well, they've managed to outlast Showtime Boxing, and they've only grown since they debuted in America. The vice president of marketing for DAZN, Alfie Sharman, was asked by IFL TV to go into further detail about comments made by Eddie Hearn regarding the success of major fights for the platform. Hearn said the numbers on DAZN off the back of Fury versus Usyk were fantastic. Oh, but what about all the piracy we heard about a week ago? 20 million illegal streams. We'll get into that. We'll make it make sense. Sharman said they being the numbers, were outstanding. I can't disclose actual numbers, but we're talking 7-figure numbers over the month period, which is outstanding for us. This week is an example, which is part of our subscription. He's talking about the Taylor versus Catterall fight, the rematch. If we use these 3 weeks as an example, Haney versus Garcia, Canelo versus Munguia, Fury versus Usyk. Globally, the numbers that we brought in who can then view this weekend, the Taylor versus Catterall rematch, as part of their regular subscription is part of our strategy in delivering value that you don't always need to pay per view to view a good fight. A solid fight. Something similar applies to the upcoming Subriel Matias versus Liam Paro fight, the upcoming Bam Rodriguez versus Gallo Estrada fight. Those aren't pay-per-views, but they are solid fights. Sharman described how DAZN strategically placed Taylor versus Catterall 2 this past weekend after major events on the platform, which were pay-per-views, as purchasers would receive a free month subscription, allowing them to watch Taylor versus Catterall for free after buying Fury versus Usyk or Canelo versus Munguia on the platform.
They would have seen an uptick in numbers, an uptick in views in the UK, more so than the US.
For that fight, the rematch between Jack and Josh, because both those guys are from over there. Josh is from Scotland, Jack's from England.
The fight would have meant more to them across the pond than it would to the Americans. Not saying the Americans didn't watch it.
There seemed to have been quite a few Americans on boxing Twitter that took in that fight. They seemed to have liked what they saw, though primarily that's a fight geared towards a UK audience. A Scotsman versus an Englishman? Come on.
Obviously.
So addressing the issue of piracy is a more nuanced situation because a little over a week ago, news broke that upwards of 20 million illegal streams allowed viewers to see Fury versus Usyk free of charge. So how could you put on a successful event when you have to combat that much piracy?
Think about it this way.
For every major pay-per-view, for every major box office fight, there's going to be a level of piracy. Whether you're talking about Canelo versus Munguia or Fury versus Usyk, this weekend's fight,
there are going to be illegal streams. There's going to be piracy.
The thing is, this is not an ordinary situation. You have to remember who's bankrolling these major shows we're talking about, like Fury versus Usyk, like this weekend show. It's not coming out of DAZN's budget. It's Turkey al-Sheikh that made those shows possible. It's coming out of his pocket. It's happening on his dime.
I don't understand.
The way it normally works, a promoter brokers a deal with a network, and then that network gives that promoter an annual budget to do shows throughout the calendar year. That's the way it normally works.
But that's not what's going on here. With fights like Fury versus Usyk or this weekend show.
Or the show in August with Terence Crawford and Israel Madrimov. What's going on here is you have a generous benefactor with plenty of money to blow.
Who has a vision.
That benefactor is bearing the financial brunt, the financial risks of putting on these shows.
Because he's paying for them.
So you have a situation to where the platform is getting top shelf, top tier content minus the financial risks. In order to gauge how successful a pay-per-view is, it does help to have a ballpark figure, an estimate, a guesstimate as to what it did at the box office, which has become elusive over time as it pertains to the DAZN platform because it's not a conventional situation. This is not a conventional cable and satellite company.
It's not like when Showtime used to do pay-per-views or if ESPN does one.
They ain't got the inside track on DAZN to know their inner workings. What we do know is that DAZN has a generous benefactor that's making very big fights. I mean, big fights that without his help, they wouldn't happen.
His Excellency.
Alleviating that financial obstacle, that financial burden on the promoter and the platform by bankrolling those shows himself. So the platform's getting the content minus the risks. And that matters.
That's how you can be successful.
It's nuanced, but it's not DAZN hemorrhaging dollars to make these shows happen. That's an important detail that I think most people overlook.
Turkey al-Sheikh has fast become boxing's fairy godfather.
Was signing what Rick Glazer was saying, how they didn't hear about no shows after Tank. Jalil said before Al Haymon got into boxing, he used to do TV shows and music, and he had 30-year runs with them. He said his boxing 30-year runs up. He looking to get up out of here. So I was like, damn, there's no way Al Haymon really about to leave boxing. But man, maybe he is.
I mean, dude been making money since Jay-Z and Beyonce, you know. Then you got to factor in Floyd and Drake and all the other dozens of people that he's dealt with in between getting that 10%.
Nesta Gibbs and a caller are talking about a recent appearance Jaleel Hackett, recent Matchroom signee Jaleel Hackett, made on the Spaces on Twitter. He had a Q&A with the fans, apparently, letting them know why he decided to go to Matchroom as well as what else is going on. As it pertains to the PBC, it's more doom and gloom. I've been hearing rumors about Al Haymon for at least a year now, you know, family issues, health issues he may be experiencing.
Though people are less interested with Al Haymon's personal life and more interested with his role at the PBC. Is that going to go on? Is that going to continue? Or is he moving on from the sport of boxing?
You'll forgive me if I pat myself on the back when I say that these are things that I've long maintained. These are all things that I've long said here on this channel as far as Fox's departure and Showtime's departure from the sport, eventually Al Haymon's departure from the sinking ship that is the PBC, what has been his baby, his company, and how their modus operandi was never sustainable.
How Al Haymon was not the wizard that he was made out to be.
Forecasting the direction and trajectory of the company over time, as well as the inner workings of this new Amazon deal that I don't even think is going to last.
I'd be surprised if they're still in boxing after this year.
And a part of what Jaleel Hackett imparted to the fans when he spoke to him on the Spaces, at least according to this from the Boxing Voice, is that he hasn't heard any new news about any new shows that would be happening after the Gervonta Davis versus Frank Martin fight.
Well, how many times have I said that?
There is that Errol Spence Jr. versus Sebastian Fundora fight set to go down in October. There's that to consider, but this is boxing. And between now and October, that's a lot of time. And a lot of things can happen, including injuries, cancellations.
Don't count your chickens before they're hatched.
So if this summer comes and goes, and all the PBC on Prime will have done is the Gervonta Davis versus Frank Martin show, if that's it, nothing in July, nothing in August,
right?
What does that communicate? Does that seem at all healthy to you for a company that just struck a landmark deal with a major platform?
It's like talking to a wall.
It's not even the current state of the PBC that brings me here so much as people's reactions over the years to where I told you this is what's going to happen. This is where they're going to end up, and this is how.
And why?
Would you believe that people used to get offended when I would say these things just for these things to become commonplace?
Now it's not Ring IQ, the content creator, saying it. Not just him. It's Jaleel Hackett. People on the other side of the industry, in the business.
For those of you that have been with me here on this channel, hearing me say these things to no end,
I am grateful.
but also understanding that most of the populace is full of slack-jawed gawkers and morons.
Mouth breathers.
Not critical thinkers and not individuals who are capable of taking their emotions out of it and just processing the information for what it is.
And why should anybody have gotten emotional about the PBC? Why should anybody have gotten emotional about Al Haymon?
Forecasting his company's demise, it's because they tried to turn him into a civil rights leader when he was nothing more than just another boxing guy.
That's it.
Deified due to the success he had with a fighter that he didn't groom, that he didn't build or develop. Deified due to the success he had alongside Floyd Mayweather, a generational talent who was already a finished product when you met him.
These people are stupid, man.
Some are so desperate for an idol, so desperate for an iconoclast, that they were willing to elevate Al Haymon to the status of a patron saint for no reason other than their perceptions of him were off base.
Your perceptions that he's looking out for the black boxer in America, is that what he was doing?
Because that's not what it looks like, but you can't see the forest through the trees because you're emotionally compromised. Con men come in all colors, shapes, and sizes.
You're surprised that there's some that look like you?
So do failures. And when you think about the PBC's beginnings, how they started out with something like $500 million, maybe more than that, it's an abject failure after 9 or 10 years.
Where'd all the money go?
Where will all the fighters go after that ship is finally sunk? It's what I told you. They'll be divided between the remaining major promotional outfits. Some of them are going to go to Matchroom. Some of them are going to go to Golden Boy, Top Rank.
It's karma.
Because Al Haymon's vision of the PBC was an island, a biosphere that would operate independently of all the other game in town. And he should have known that boxing doesn't work like that. You can't succeed.
If he were the wizard he's made out to be.
Can't sustain. You don't dictate the value of your fighters or your shows to the market. The market dictates the value to you.
You kidding?
So when I hear that after all these years, he may be leaving the sport of boxing and moving on to something else for whatever reason he's moving on.
Told you so.
So what are you going to do? You're going to hold a grudge? You're going to be mad at me because I saw this coming? You're going to be mad at me because I was right?
No, you're just a special kind of stupid.
You would have to be, if that's what the nature of your problem is.
Your problem with me